As a casual anime fan, one is spoiled for choice by the sheer number of waifus that one can choose from. For every personality, every type, every preference, every taste, one can choose with confidence a waifu who is perfectly molded for you and you alone, and maybe a whole lot of other people too, if that anime is super popular. But what if I was to tell you that there was a way to judge if a waifu was actually objectively good compared to another? And what if I was to tell you that that exact criteria was actually found in the Bible? A reading from the book of Proverbs, chapter 31 NIV, slightly modified for the purposes of this video. A waifu of noble character who can find, she is certainly worth far more than rubies, and certainly so in a field of waifus full of women willing to exploit and manipulate, assault and maim. A waifu of noble character is certainly difficult to find. For the average anime enjoyer, a waifu is worth more than one could imagine, and of course one can't help but protect the smiles that have been granted upon us. One of my favorite scenes from Oshinoko is when Aqua saves Akane from jumping across the bridge, and even though they aren't officially a couple at this time, Aqua still takes the initiative in wanting to protect Akane's smile in light of all the abuse that she suffered. A waifu's smile is worth far more than rubies, the saving of a waifu's life even more so. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value, which is a beautiful thing, isn't it? For one to place their full trust in a partner, and it's an incredible step of faith to not be always suspicious of one's partner. Marriages are also more likely to be successful when both in the relationship are communicating fully, understanding of a common goal, and that can only be done with full confidence with one's partner, which is the healthy kind of relationship found in Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, where throughout the series we focus on Sakuta and Mai, the relationship and the supernatural events which come upon them. Yeah, on the surface, Sakuta is a scumbag, especially in the manner that he acts, but Mai still trusts him. It's not that he's considering other romantic interests, because Sakuta has full confidence in Mai and lacks nothing of value, and therefore Mai has that same trust in him. He's the guy who worked his butt off to make sure he wouldn't forget Mai as she was disappearing from the world. So why would Mai ever lose that confidence? Where trust builds on trust, confidence builds on confidence. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. And I know it's a thing that some guys have for tsunderes for some reason, and if you do want to justify that, feel free to in the comments. But you know, it's an interesting observation to see how once these incredibly violent women do find someone partner up with, their violent tendencies seemingly fade away. Misato from Nichijou is the perfect example of this, of a woman who can't really control her emotions, but when she leans into her femininity and actually acknowledges her feelings towards this guy, she then does bring him good, not harm, and hopefully it continues all the days of her life, which is a good thing for a spirit of positivity to exude in a relationship, because of course you are wanting to work through problems and issues together, but also to do so in a way, of course, not only working constructively for the sake of the relationship, but also as a living sacrifice for God. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants, which is a brilliant image of a waifu who diligently works for the benefit of her family. Work is what brings the waifu of noble character joy, and it's not being forced upon her. Her husband has full trust in her that she's not just lounging about or squandering the resources he's earned. It's also not just subsistence living and being dependent on the food being grown at home, but working to the point where there is some level of abundance to be enjoyed by her family, to the point that she can also provide for the servants of the household, and they're not being exploited in that sense. The waifu of noble character makes sure her household is provided for, as well as for those who are under her employment. Hana from Wolf Children is a sort of tragic character because she ends up being a single mother in the first act of the movie, yet while this tragedy has befallen her, she gets back up and remains steadfast in the duty bestowed upon her, and that is to still persist in absence of her husband and to provide for the children who depend on her. One of the highlights of the movie is just Hana and the kids chilling together as they find their new life in the countryside, away from the hustle and bustle of the city, tea, and they all just work together to renovate the house to make a small farm so they can actually eat. For each of them to find community, unlike what couldn't be found in the oh-so individualistic culture present in the city. I'll try not to spoil the rest of it, but Hana does achieve her purpose despite now being a single mother with unique challenges, but she faces those challenges nonetheless. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand, she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. Of course, in our modern context, the best way to picture this is a waifu who goes above and beyond to provide for the family in conjunction with her husband, which may trigger the tradcaths, but in my view, if that is the calling a woman has on her life, then it's perfectly acceptable for her to go out into the world and make something of herself in addition to the duties she has in the household. However, the image created perfectly matches Ylva from Vinland Saga, because it's really cool of her to have been unintentionally forced into this role with her father and younger brother gone and with a mother who is rapidly aging. It's cool that she's fully immersed in this role of considering a field, then buying it, setting about her work vigorously, that her arms are strong for her tasks, that she sees her trading as profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. I do want to make this really clear that this doesn't mean she's a girl boss and an independent, strong woman, because she eventually marries and continues doing this despite also having a husband to rely upon. There's nothing wrong with that, and Ylva does match that image of a Proverbs 31 woman who sets about her work not in service of herself like the modern feminist does, but sets about her work with the biblical mandate at heart. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Kaguya Shinomiya from Love is War, I think, is the perfect example of someone who is incredibly wealthy, has no fear for her household, is clothed in scarlet, fine linen, and purple, as in that she lives with a great amount of wealth. However, she doesn't fulfill that first part of the proverb. While she has personally grown far more since the first episode, it does not come naturally to Shinomiya to open her arms to the poor nor extend her hands to the needy. It's actually something that her father forbids her to do. It's something that is built into her family ethos, which is to remain emotionless and in doing so remain powerful. Yet she meets a guy who is kind to others for the sake of being kind and is himself also relatively poor, and because of that she changes and grows and finds out how to love. I am aware a lot of people have a deep disdain for wealth and those who possess it, but it is with great wealth that one can weather the storms and struggles of life, but one can also extend a helping hand to those who desperately need it. The rich don't need a lecture in order to get that through their heads. It is in the same way that Jesus extends his love towards us and changes us, that so too our behavior changes. And if we wish for the wealthy to change their behavior, perhaps it's also on us to extend that love towards them, for which their behavior then changes after. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. A good friend of mine, after having watched Weathering with You, actually didn't like it very much compared to Shinkai's other works, because Weathering with You features two young teenagers with an insane ambition to escape responsibility, escape the authorities, and find a life for themselves, which is completely unrealistic, and it shows the importance of that fact, which is that a waifu of noble character should have a husband who is respected at the city gate. Hodaka is not respected because he abandoned everything he has known. He hasn't even graduated yet. He doesn't even have a job. So with that, of course, it's completely insane of him to even imagine trying to make a life with Hina. Hina, on the other hand, throughout the movie, we see that she has actively sought out work. It's not necessarily making linen garments to sell them, but even before she began making money by doing the praying thing, she was trying her absolute best to actually make this life work with her younger brother. I think Proverbs 31 speaks a lot about the criteria that we as men should look for when looking for a waifu of noble character. And there's also the elements of this passage that talk about us and the kind of guy who is also deserving of being a husband of a woman of such stature. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. And I think it's actually Violet Evergarden who matches this description, because while we don't see a lot of her doing wife things and living with a husband, I think she as an individual is placed in such a good position to speak with wisdom and faithful instruction. Throughout the whole series, she learns more about people, and that they aren't just simply objects to be killed. They aren't simply violent machines whose sole purpose is to wage war, but she learns a lot about emotion and how she should even interact with such a thing in the first place. She also desires purpose. She doesn't want to remain idle. She doesn't want to just lounge about after having been adopted by this new family in the first episode. Despite the wishes of her superior officer, she seeks work, and she seeks to make a difference. It's a beautiful thing to watch over these 12 episodes, and Violet Evergarden, while it is a very short series, can still capture the journey one goes through as they discover aspects of themselves that they never thought possible, to experience emotions that one has never experienced before, and as a result of this journey for other people to also encounter that and be a part of that, and as a result for Violet to also impart bits and pieces of knowledge and advice here and there, for her tongue to be filled with wisdom and faithful instruction. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also and praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. It's with this bit of the passage that I really want to talk about Nagisa from Clannad, because yes, she is incredibly sick and ill and very fragile. If there was one waifu I were to talk about in terms of someone being worth far more than Rubies, someone whose life could simply shatter simply by just holding her, there is no one more delicate nor more fragile than Nagisa Furokawa. I don't want to give too many spoilers for those of you who haven't watched it, but the way she supports Tomoya, who is an incredibly flawed individual, the way that these two interact and just watching their chemistry as they build off of one another, the way that they journey with each other through high school and then go off into the real world is such a beautiful thing. It's the sort of relationship I feel a lot of you guys who watch this channel want to engage in. We all want to be independent, to be able to work in a job which is fulfilling to us, for us to find someone, for us to praise them, and also be praised for the work we do. I think that's why I so deeply adore Clannad, for the emotional roller coaster it brings, but also because these characters capture our anxieties as young people so accurately. To find a waifu of noble character, to find a wife of noble character, I think there's a fear that one may not have that you're never going to get that in your life. But at the same time, I think there's a level of faith and trust that one has to put in Christ for his plan for one's life. And should that not include a waifu of noble character to journey with, or to do life with, to do work with, or to have a family with, yeah, it's very complicated. And I don't want to provide empty platitudes that you are totally going to make it, because there's also a level of maturity that one finds in their journey of faith, that if God isn't intending that for you and he wishes something else, then whether you find someone or not, you still gotta place your trust in him. But most importantly, if you, dear viewer, are indeed seeking someone to be that waifu of noble character, I love the way that Proverbs 31 ends. It's on this note that charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring praise at the city gate. So I encourage you, dear viewer, to seek to be a man worthy of the waifu of noble character, and for the small number of women who are also here, for you guys to endeavor to the criteria that's been set out here. I am certainly on this journey too, seeking to be worthy of someone who is more precious than Rubies, of someone who works incredibly hard to provide for the family, to be a guy who is respected at the city gates, and to seek someone not solely based on charm and beauty, but to seek someone who fears the Lord as much as I really ought to as well. It's a beautiful thing for God to have provided this criteria for us. Why not then follow it as God wishes?